They are the beyond contract singers, ladies and gentlemen.
I think having the authority or giving oneself authority to tell your own story, to tell her own story, and not let anybody else tell your story.
So my biggest, fondest memory of Donald, I have two. He was my homeroom teacher, and I remember my freshman year seeing this handsome black man, and I'm thinking he's rushing everybody into class, like, come on, let's go, get out of class. He was really good at getting everybody out of the hallway. You just didn't mess with Donald. So I remember getting in his class and thinking like, oh man, he doesn't play. But when we get in class, he's like, my name is Donald. He wrote it on the board. He wrote, my name is Donald. Do not nix my name. It's not Don. It's not D. It's Donald. And I remember thinking like, he don't play. He's like an uncle that I didn't have, that I don't remember. And the next year, the following summer, I came back to school the following year, and I was pregnant. And I was a teenage mom, obviously 17 years old, and nobody knew. A lot of people didn't know because I wore really big clothes. And when people finally started to know, I remember I had to write this paper for Donald. And I was like at home feeling crampy. And I knew that my son wasn't due until March 18th, 1995. And I was like, it's January 27th. There's no way he's coming. But I told my mom anyways, like, I'm not feeling good. I remember rushing across the street trying to get to school because you couldn't be late for Donald's homeroom. And she's telling me, well, see how far apart they are. And I'm like, I don't know how to time this. I don't know what she's talking about, but okay. And she's like, stay home. And I'm like, no, I have to write this paper. I want to say it was for adolescent and lit, but I cannot remember because I didn't take school seriously, sadly, in high school, my first 2 years. So I get to school and I rush to tutor and I'm writing this paper. I'm like leaning back, like through contractions. And I can't remember which one of my friends was like helping me write this paper. And I'm like, I gotta get it in before he leaves. I gotta get in before he leaves. So I finally finish it and I bring it to him and he comes out the class and he's like, girl, your stomach dropped. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what that means because I'm 17. I'm just having a baby. And he was like, you're about to have that baby. And I was like, no, I'm not, because I'm not due till March 18th and today's January 27th. And he was like, well, I don't care what you say. You're either gonna have your baby on my birthday, which is the 29th, or you're gonna have it before my birthday. And I said, whatever. So I go home. I actually went to a basketball game. My son's father was on the varsity team, I remember. I went to his game. I sat through the whole game in labor. And my friend Sarah Reese, I was like, I'm not feeling well at all. Like, I really should be going home at this point. And she was like, okay, well, my friend can give you a ride. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I get home. And sure enough, I tell my mom I'm not feeling good. And sure enough, I was in labor. And I had my son on January 28th, 1995. And I don't even remember if I passed that paper, how well I did. I just know that I didn't go back to school till the following year. And Donald kept saying, I told you, girl, I told you you were going to have that baby. And I just will always remember him for that, for not judging me, for being like the uncle that, like, the black uncle. He just felt so, like, at home, and you just knew better. Like, the fact that I wanted to get that paper in before I even had my own baby is crazy. And he'll just forever be like the uncle that I just never knew and never had, because I didn't know any of my uncles. They all died. But I love Donald forever, and I will forever love him for that. So thank you for the memories.
I met Donald Burroughs when I trained with the National Seed Project in July 2015. I will never forget his infectious smile, his incredible style, his authenticity, and his genuine love for humanity. I had the pleasure of having Donald facilitate the multi-ethnic affinity group, and through that, developed a warm, honest, and open rapport with him. After Seed, we stayed in touch through social media, and in 2018, I asked him if he would be willing to write a blurb for my book, Strength of Soul. He did, and his blurb made me feel seen, respected, and understood. Donald was a mentor, a teacher, and a friend. I'm deeply saddened that breath has left him, and the world feels a bit dimmer without him. But those of us who knew and loved him will now carry his light and his memory.
Letter of Recommendation for Marguerite Hicks, February 1984. Marguerite Hicks was a student in my Black Experience in Literature and Short Fiction electives. Both of these are elective courses, semester courses, and were taken in her senior year. Marguerite is an avid reader who has an insight into characterization, symbolism, and theme. Her comprehension is based on logic and a maturity beyond her age and grade level. She approaches literature as a psychologist would. Marguerite understands the motivations and influences on characters in literature, and this is pervasive in her interactions with her peers and teachers. She possesses a logical thought process and is able to extrapolate thematic concepts and, in turn, specify the parts of the whole. Marguerite's participation in class discussions is commendable. She was often the catalyst to other students understanding and buying into the classroom process. I extol her leadership capabilities. Marguerite is personable, even-tempered, clear-thinking, and enterprising. She has untapped potentialities and will succeed in her endeavors, especially if she continues to grow and develop and exude the academic qualities evidenced in my courses. I have the utmost confidence in her success and recommend her highly. Donald B. Burroughs.
Hi, my name is Sarah Reese, and I'm a pilot school graduate, class of 1995, and I wanted to send a video in to just talk a little bit about the enormous influence that Donald Burroughs had over my education and life. I was lucky enough to have Donald as an English language arts teacher at the pilot school from 1991 to 1995. And I wanted to just highlight a few ways that he's stayed with me all these years after we've graduated. In his African American literature class, we read Ralph Ellison and Zora Neale Hurston and Toni Morrison. And through these texts, Donald held space for very difficult conversations for students of all racial backgrounds to discuss identity and racism. But what I remember the most is that through these texts, he introduced us also to the joy and beauty, culture, excellence, art, music, and contributions of Black Americans, in addition to the plight of racism in this country. He did this all with so much dignity, contagious and courageous dignity. As a college student, when I enrolled in an African American literature class, thanks to Donald, I had a foundation and had read about 95% of the books on the syllabus. I may have even used a paper for one of those classes, and hopefully no one from Rutgers University is watching this video. But in all seriousness, I owe Donald a great deal of gratitude for helping me understand the history of racism in our country, my role as a white person, and the deep appreciation for the diverse contributions for Black Americans. Another valuable lesson that Donald instilled in me and several of my girlfriends during high school was helping us all understand what healthy and unhealthy relationships look like. Really, he was teaching us about love. Two of my close friends were in very unhealthy and abusive relationships during high school. And not only did Donald explain to us why this wasn't love, he worked to make sure that these two young women were not isolated and that they had the support to eventually get out of these very unhealthy relationships. He taught us about love. My most fun memories of Donald include the staff number he organized annually at the pilot play. It was by far the best act of the play. We looked forward to seeing what he would put together with the staff, and under Donald's choral direction, we knew that they would sing a song that could have easily been featured on Broadway. He introduced us to music of the Pointer Sisters and kept the legacy of the legendary Luther Vandross going. So for that, he kept soul music and blues and funk, and the power of music is what Donald knew would bring people together. And I still rely on all three of those lessons, so I'm forever grateful for you, Donald. Thank you.
I first met Donald Burroughs as a gangly, awkward 14-year-old freshman when I entered his homeroom. I was so excited to be in Pilot, a program I had dreamed about being in since I was in the 5th grade when my parents brought me to the plays, and I fell in love with the music, theater, and free love. To say Donald felt like he had his own force field around him doesn't really describe what it felt like to me. Here was this brilliant man, unconcerned with what people thought, but so kind and so empathetic, with eyes that could blaze right through your soul. I thought I was a reader before Donald, but he showed me what it was to experience life through reading. Reading Richard Wright, Toni Morrison, Gloria Naylor, and Ralph Ellison shaped my mind more than any curriculum could ever do. His love and appreciation for Shakespeare was infectious. It was not long before I too was seeking out the lesser-known plays and wondering what they meant. But most of all, his actual love for us was what tethered me to that 5th floor. On more than one occasion, Donald pulled me aside to remind me that I was wasting my intellect on acting foolish and chasing popularity. He never minced words, but being the wordsmith that he was careful with them. One of my favorite memories of Donald was watching him sing in the 1993 pilot play the song The Power of Love by Luther Vandross. I watched from the audience awestruck as his voice sung out Luther in perfect harmony, and he did the dance, twirling around, eliciting loud screams from the students. I will remember him this way, singing along. When I say goodbye, it is never for long, 'cause I know our love still lives on. It will be again exactly like it was, 'cause I believe in the power of love. I love And I thank you, Donald.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joan Sobel, and I am one of Donald's longtime friends and former colleagues. Donald was assigned to be my mentor when I joined the faculty of the pilot school in 1987. We hit it off immediately. Today, I'm going to speak briefly about Donald as both an educator and my friend. And in fact, those two things were always intertwined in our relationship. So first, Donald was an extraordinary teacher. You don't have to take my word for it. Facebook is brimming with beautiful, heartfelt, appreciative tributes to him written by his former students. Just so you can have a taste of the kinds of things they've been saying, I share with you, with his permission, the Facebook message Jason Boyd sent me last week. Jason wrote, "Donald was a true giant of a human being, brilliant, fabulous, thoughtful, a fierce but kind man who gave freely of his gifts. I'm better for having been his student, having been in his orbit. Donald traveled well on his earthly journey, and even though word of his transition to the realm of ancestors left me with a true feeling of grief and loss, I couldn't help but smile when thinking about the beautiful dude he was. The brother was the real deal. He will be truly missed, but live on in so many ways in so many of us who had the chance to know him." Donald was my mentor officially for just 1 year, but I never stopped learning from him. To listen to him, to watch him in action, to talk education or anything else with him was to learn. Sometimes Donald's classroom was a lively, harmonious place where students interacted with great literature, shared their own stories, embraced experiences of beauty and meaning that Donald provided. Other times, it was a crucible where students' emotions and conflicts were intense, and Donald was the refiner's fire, fierce, but also kind, as Jason might say. Listening to Donald talk about what he'd done in those tense, transformative situations, I learned so much about how to support not just students who were feeling angry, hurt, misunderstood, or disrespected, but also the students who'd made them feel that way, the young adults in formation who were needing to understand how their words and actions, often reflections of their unexamined assumptions and expectations, affected or could affect other people. So now I'm going to switch gears and talk about my friendship with Donald. As I said before, we clicked immediately and pretty quickly became part of each other's lives, which meant meeting each other's family and friends. I was invited to listen to Al preach, to hear Teresa sing, and to celebrate the milestone birthdays of Ida and Arlette. Meanwhile, before I got married, Donald was always my date for family weddings, and he was also a regular at my parents' house for Jewish High Holy Day dinners and Passover seders. If on any of these occasions I looked a little more stylish than I generally do, it was because when Donald gave me a piece of clothing as a gift, probably something he'd gotten at Ophelia's store, it was usually accompanied by a letter telling me what clothing and accessories I already owned that would go really well with it. Donald and I were always in conversation, on the red line, in my car, in some bar or restaurant, at my kitchen table, or on the phone. Frequently, our conversations were punctuated by lines from old movies that we'd nearly committed to memory, which meant that even during our most serious talks, we usually laughed really hard. I loved how easily we moved between the ridiculous and the sublime, the profound and the superficial, the sacred and the profane. And none of this made the serious, important stuff any less serious or important, just a little more bearable. The other night when I was talking to Manuel Munoz, another of Donald's really good friends, I began a sentence with, "To have Donald in your corner." And Manuel finished it with, "was to be blessed and highly favored." It really was. Donald was so generous with his always thoughtful attention. He listened deeply, knew when to advise, probe, or just listen, and kept track of what was going on with those dearest to him. His attentiveness absolutely saved me last December when my dad died of COVID-19 and the pandemic made gathering with others to grieve out of the question. Donald was still very much mourning his sister Deborah, but still he called me every night for the next 2 months to be sure that I was okay. I never needed to doubt that Donald was in my corner. And when I think about that, that's when I realize that what makes it really hard to have lost Donald is not just that I loved him so much, but that he loved me so much. In Jewish tradition, when a person dies, people say, "May his memory be for a blessing." Essentially, it expresses the hope that the good that the person said, did, taught, will continue to flow into the universe, in part because our memories of them will inspire and guide us to extend their good work and influence. There's no question in my mind that the memory of Donald will be for a blessing. As Jason said, Donald, quote, will live on in so many ways in so many of us who had the chance to know him, unquote. I will remember Donald every day, and he will always be in my heart.
The silence around the internalized dominance and oppression built in this system and its systems in every level, economic, housing, healthcare, schooling, and class, and what we do, or what it does in terms of gender.
Yes. Yes.
And what it does in terms of religion and ableism. And all those things are in it. And we are, some people are out there having the privilege of just experiencing the best of what this country has, just going back and forth. To admit that I have privilege as a male, but at another level, looking at my skin color as a black male, there's certain privileges I don't have. There's certain privileges I have as a male in terms of the female counterparts, but on the other hand, my sexuality does not give me that same privilege that other males have. And to talk about these things openly and honestly and empower ourselves with our own stories.
In the 22 years I've been doing SEED, I think the most profound impact and effect of my SEED training and the SEED project around inclusive curriculum has been what it has done for my students. The young people in the classrooms to understand their voice, understand their multiple identities and the intersection of all of their identities, and providing them a space to talk, to be themselves, a place where they could be organically who they are, culturally, their own language, their own home values, as well as what it means to be in academia. To meld the two, to meld what's on the shelf and what's in the self, I think that has been the most meaningful part for me, to watch that evolution, to watch the growth from freshman through high school and beyond. And I still hear from students who are now teachers. They're replicating some of the kinds of things that we did in my classrooms, which were seed-based initiatives and activities. They're doing them in their classroom now. And that means so much to me as a teacher, as a seed leader and facilitator, and as an adult in their lives. It's something that I did right.